Hi everyone, my name's Marianne and I'm the Conservation Officer for Argyll, the Trossachs and Stirlingshire, and I'll be talking you through an update for the region from the past 5 years. So on the map on the left you can see where it's positioned in the central lowlands on the western edge of the country, and whilst comparable in size to many of the other areas in the project, we have a slightly easier job in many respects, and you can see that from the map on the right, where most of the overlap of red and grey squirrels are in the southeast of the region. That's where the majority of our work happens in order to protect the red squirrel stronghold populations in the Highlands and Argyll that have never seen a grey squirrel. And because of this, the majority of this update will focus on our activities in the southeast of the region. The people in our region consist of myself, the full-time conservation officer, a seasonal grey squirrel officer that is usually in post from March to July each year. However, we didn't have anyone in post in 2020 because of the COVID pandemic, and actually instead we had someone in post from December 2020 to September this year. And that's really helped us to get on top of the grey squirrel population boom that we saw in 2019 and 2020. I'm also supported in the region by some amazing volunteers and landowners, and they help with all aspects of the different activities in our region, from analysing hair samples, carrying out feeder box surveys, engaging with the public, and helping at events, and also helping with our grey squirrel control efforts and squirrel pox surveillance year round. The main focus in our region links back to two things: grey squirrel control, which is focused on the Highland line shown in blue on this map, and the other is surveillance for the squirrel pox virus in grey squirrel populations, both within the region and also just south of it in the central belt between Glasgow and Falkirk. First thing to have a look at is what the squirrel populations look like in this region and how they've changed over the past 5 years. The map on the left is from 2016 and the map on the right is this current year, 2021. As you can see, there's a lot more sightings in 2021 compared to 2016. Sightings can be a little bit misleading, as although it looks like there's suddenly a lot more grey squirrels in Glasgow and Stirling in 2021, it's likely that this is just a little bit more representative of what's actually happening, because many people didn't know to report their sightings in 2016, and actually it really shows that people have become aware of the project and have started to engage a bit better by reporting their sightings. For instance, I had a quick look at how many sightings I confirmed in the past couple of years. In 2018, I confirmed 340 in Argyll and Bute in Stirlingshire, and then last year it was a whopping 3,890 different sightings. I was quite amazed at this extra 3,500 sightings that I reported last year. No wonder it felt quite busy. It's great to know that we've been engaging with people across the region and also just outside of it, and that they're really helping us to understand what's happening on a more local level. And it also gives us an advance warning of where reds and greys are dispersing into areas that they haven't been seen before or for a long time. If we look at just grey squirrel sightings on their own, you can see the key areas of focus that we're looking at grey squirrel control. Our activities focus again around that Highland Line priority area for control. It's along the very edge of the national park, which is almost a red-only zone. One of the key areas is to the west of Loch Lomond, between Helensburgh and Argyll, where you can see the population of greys actually looks to have increased from 2016 to 2021, but again that is just as a result of our engagement in that area and people now reporting more squirrels than they were. So we now have a better understanding of the pressure in that area on red squirrels. And the other region is between Callander and Stirling in the east, where grey squirrels are moving up from the central belt through Falkirk and Stirling. The aim across the region is to remove all squirrels, or at least keep them as a lower level as possible within and north of the Highland Line, and then to continue pushing those populations further south and trying to maintain as low a number of grey squirrels as possible, helping those red squirrels kind of move back in. We now have really good connections in place across the region, which mean we're able to see when grey squirrels are dispersing out and when populations are booming, and then we're able to quickly remove those individuals before populations become established. There's a lot of different people that support us in doing this in the region and in grey squirrel management generally. Our staff, our seasonal grey squirrel officer obviously does some of this, We also work with estates on the forestry grant scheme. There's currently 7 on the scheme this year, and actually there were another 7 that have been on it previously, but actually they've now decided not to go on the grant scheme because they have too few grey squirrels and it's not really necessary for them to get that extra support. They're still doing control, but at much lower levels and only when they see individuals. It's a lot more reactive. We're also supported by people sharing their records if they're already controlling outside of the project, and that's independent estates and individuals. We also have our trap loan scheme, like in many other areas of the project. We don't always get records from everybody, but there's at least 100 different traps out with different people across the region. And just as a snapshot view for trap loans only, in the results that we have received this year so far, they've been active for 14,870 days. So that's a lot of effort and work that people are putting in. And up to now, there's been about 250 grey squirrels removed. Looking at the other main focus of our area, both ourselves and the Tayside region survey for squirrel pox in grey squirrel populations as it's coming up from South Scotland. At present, the only confirmed presence of squirrel pox in the grey squirrels is to the southern edge of this area, Argyll, the Trossachs and Stirlingshire. The majority of any positive results we've had since surveying are between Falkirk and Stirling. However, even these don't really show that it's established. The blood tests that we get back and their antibody levels are so low that it suggests it's still not really taking a foothold, which is great news and really good for our red squirrels locally. With continued monitoring in all of these green squares on the map, it helps us to keep an eye on where the virus is and if it is getting close to red squirrel populations so that we can try and set things up in advance and warn the local communities to keep an eye out for poorly red squirrels. There's been very few confirmed positive cases in grey squirrels in the region since 2018, suggesting it's still not established and is taking a lot longer to move up through the country than we'd anticipated. It's great news because it means that we've been able to set up networks of control in advance and we know which areas are prone to grey squirrels moving up through them, and it's really helped by some geographical features in the region too. And then we know exactly which areas to target extra control efforts. Our grey squirrel control and the squirrel pox surveillance activities are supported by our monitoring efforts within the region to keep an eye on how well we're doing. We can gain some insight from the sightings reported to us, but as I mentioned before, they're not always representative and they really rely on people and squirrels being in the same place and for people to report their sighting. An activity that's helped and we've had a lot of help from volunteers is the annual feeder box survey, and you can see some of the results from that here. We were last able to carry this out in 2019. It's been running since 2012 and uses hair samples to see who's been visiting. Red squares are red squirrels, blue squares are grey squirrels, and purple is the combination of the two in that area. And these maps with the areas highlighted in blue circles show that actually we've seen a decrease of grey squirrels, especially within the national park, and we've even seen red squirrels move out into new areas around Stirling and Falkirk. And it really helps us keep an eye on what's going on across the country. This is echoed by the red squirrel sightings, showing that not only are more sightings being reported across the region than they were in 2016, but there is more red squirrel presence in the southeast of the region too, showing our efforts are working. That's everything from me. Thank you very much for listening.